It's our 2022 season wrap-up episode. We'll talk about what worked this year, what didn't work, classes of accretive fantasy investments, fantasy MVPs, and much, much more. The Athletic's Ian Kahn returns to the Beat the Shift podcast next. Welcome to another episode of the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. I am your host, Ariel Cohen, and with me as always is Ruvain Guy. How are you, Ruvain?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I am doing splendid, fresh off of 4 hours of pickleball. Oh my God, baseball season is over for me. So it's on to pickleball this year. How about you, Ruvain? How you doing?
I am not into pickleball, so I don't really enjoy playing, mini tennis with 70-year-old women. So I'm sure you enjoy it, and I'm sure you're good at it because you do practice it a lot. And now I am making fun of it, but I heard LeBron James is also making a league out of it or something like that. So it is a serious sport now.
Yeah, LeBron James actually bought, I think, one of the big tennis organizations or teams or so. And you will see pickleball grow. They're actually showing it quite a bit on the Tennis Channel on TV. So this is not just a craze. This is here to stay. All right, well, anyways, we are here to talk about fantasy baseball, and season over in the books. Hope you guys won your championships. Hope you did well and took down some money, took down some pride and glory and hardware. And we're just going to wrap up the season, and not just wrap up the season, but think about what went right, what went wrong, and more importantly, what we can improve for next year. With us, we've had him on before. You know him from the Athletic Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Ian Kahn, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Ruvain. Thank you, Ariel. Real pleasure. This is my last show of the season. We did our season finale 2 days ago, which you can catch with Derek Van Riper and Nando Rufino, and did a show with James Anderson, my other buddy and partner, and I feel like a lucky third wheel with you guys. So thank you as always for having me on.
Well, we are lucky to have you on the show. And, before we get into some of the fantasy talk, since it is the end of the season, do you have any favorite moment or momentous occasion involving baseball this year or fantasy baseball, just to look back at how this year was?
A momentous moment. There were so many. And so many great moments individually on players that I enjoyed and believed in that came through, guys who I did believe in that didn't come through. Those happened for sure too. But I'm going to say it's the Aaron Judge chase at the end. I love that guy so much. I was lucky enough to be at the Yankee game with my son the other night. We were in right field. We ended up being pretty close to the field, like within 8 rows in right field, like right between first base and right field, but closer to right field. So only about 30 feet away from Judge. And I kind of found one spot where I cut my hands and I went up to the front and I said to Deborah, I was like, as soon as they start pitching, I'm going to move. And I just kind of sent him a message just thanking him for what an amazing season he gave us, but more importantly, what an amazing man he is and what a great role model he is and how he plays the game in such a wonderful way with joy, and he's looking out for other people first. I mean, he's sort of the epitome of he's my favorite baseball player I've ever watched, and that includes players that I grew up watching, like Dave Winfield, Reggie Jackson, Greg Nettles. I mean, I know that's a weird one, but Mickey Rivers, who was one of my absolute favorites. This is before you guys were born, maybe. But he's my favorite, more than Dirk Jeter. He's my favorite, more than Mariano Rivera. He's my favorite. So, he may be gone, and I was lucky enough to send him that little message. So I would say him going for 60, 61, and 62. That section, my whole family, my younger son who's not a huge baseball fan, my older son who is a huge baseball fan, my wife who is a huge baseball fan, and me who is a pretty big baseball fan and big Judge fan. For every at-bat, wherever we were in the house, it would, like, a message would go out, like, he's up, and we would all run down and watch. And that went on for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of really just lovely time, and I'm glad he finally did it. In my opinion, I don't know. He's the AL record holder. So that would be it for me, Aaron Judge.
Unbelievable. Yeah, at 11.4 WAR this year. Just an incredible season, and hope for your sake that he stays with the Yankees. I mean, you never know what he'll do, but maybe he'll stay with the hometown. What about you, Ruvain? What was your memorable moment of the season?
Speaking of players that we hope will stay with our hometown team, I mean, I really got a kick out of how Edwin Diaz's trumpet song,
Yeah.
Timmy Trumpets, that whole thing, that was just an amazing thing. It really it crossed sports. New York City was into it. It was on social media like
It's awesome.
everywhere. It was just really, really good, and I just love the way how Timmy Trumpets jinxed the whole Mets season by saying, "We'll meet you in the World Series."
Oh
That
man.
right there was the death knell. That was the black cat in front of the dugout. That was the jinxing of the season right there.
Oh
But it
man.
was at that moment probably the height of the Mets' popularity and of Diaz of his play, because he didn't really
Greatness, yeah.
pitch that much down the stretch. And you know what? His season was just so great. You knew when he came in, when you're at the stadium. I was at a couple of games, and you get to watch him live, and you hear him, and you hear the music come on, and everyone's clapping at the same time. It whatever you hear on TV, it's nothing like it in real person. In person, it is just amazing, and
Nice.
that was the high point.
Yeah, I was at one of those games with Timmy Trumpet with there. It was the one that Diaz did not come in, so I didn't see him do it live. He played God Bless America or something, but that was a great series that he was there for.
It's a good song.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Actually, the Islanders opening night is tonight, and the what they use now to have the players go onto the ice is now the Timmy Trumpet song. So the Islanders have even taken that song. It's really invigorating. My favorite moment of the year, I got two of them, and it's just attending games with my family. I remember, like in August, I went with my dad and brothers. I just took the day off, and I rarely take days off from work, but let me take my dad and brothers out to a game, and we enjoyed a nice game together. I haven't been to a game with my father in years. It was really nice just to watch a game with him. Just amazing. There was one spot in the game where, and we were pretty much center, right down the middle, behind home plate, upper deck, and we stood up. Maybe it was seventh inning, and we were all standing, and the four of us got on the Diamond Vision on the big screen, just the four of us, and we're like, oh my god, and we're waving our hands pretty much with a straight on shot. So that was kind of cool. And the other moment I had is earlier in May, Memorial Day. I took my family to the game against the Nationals. It was the game that like Nick Plummer had an amazing week, and he had a home run, and he was just on fire. And the Mets scored like 10 runs in the first 3 innings. But somewhere in the middle of the game, and my son, who's a baseball fan, he's wearing a Pete Alonso jersey that we bought for him in Cooperstown. And Pete Alonso comes up and hits a ball down the line, one bounce, and he grabs it, and he gets a Pete Alonso foul ball. That made his night. It made his week. That was just an unbelievable thing to see my son smile with a baseball from Pete Alonso. And so I just won't forget that memory.
So it's family, right? And Edwin Diaz.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
Good
what it
stuff.
is.
good stuff. All right, well, let's get into some of the fantasy talk here. Before we talk about some of the things that went right, didn't go right, and strategy, I do want to cover fantasy MVPs, which actually might play into some of the strategy as we talk about it. But let's go around the room and talk about who we think the fantasy MVP is, hitters versus pitchers, etc. So, Ian, why don't we start with you? And who do you think? I mean, it's pretty obvious this year. Who is the hitter who was drafted in every league? Who was the fantasy MVP player? A player who was the fantasy MVP of the season was.
The hitter. I mean, the answer is Aaron Judge. So he just is. He's by far the MVP. He's a backbone of winning teams. It was lucky if you got him, or smart if you got him. But if he fell to you in a draft, you did good. And if you paid for him in the auction, you did good. He's the fantasy MVP. 70. He was worth $70 in an OBP league this year. 70. Crazy.
Worth $57 in a batting average league. It's just crazy. And the next highest is like,
43.
Yeah, the next
42.
highest was a $40 Paul Goldschmidt. But crazy, the excess value. Yeah, he definitely is the MVP. Ruvain, anybody else worth mentioning as a hitter MVP for the year?
Yeah, I think for a lot of fantasy teams, this guy was their MVP because he not that he came out of nowhere, but he on March 3rd of this year, he was going pick 231, which was in the 15th round, and in a 5x5, he ended up being ranked number 57. I'm talking about Nate Lowe. Nate Lowe, if you had him, he was one of the biggest sleepers for this year. 27 homers, 76 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, a 302 average, and the 6th most hits in baseball at 179. If you got him that late at pick 231 in the 15th round, he probably helped you win your championship for your league because you're not going to get someone as good as that late.
Traded for him in the dynasty league Devils Rejects right before the season. Traded Justin Turner straight up for him in OBP dynasty. Actually, I think we gave a pick too. But yes, he was excellent, just excellent, so good pick. I have another guy too. I want to add if Ariel, if you don't say it.
Yeah, no, Nate Lowe is definitely one of the guys. He was cost $4 in auction equivalent for 15-team leagues. He's worth $24, which is a higher return on investment than Aaron Judge. I mean, Aaron Judge obviously was the MVP, and he's getting you $30 of profit with a $25 pick. But in the terms of just pure profit to cost, Nate Lowe is incredible at that value. But even better, Julio Rodriguez.
That's my guy. There you go.
I mean, he also got you the steals. $4 ADP worth almost $30. In that category also, Adolis Garcia, $6 ADP worth $29.
Adolis.
I do want to mention a few guys with high return on investments that you may not think about because they don't have the $40 return value, but in terms of bang per dollar pick, Brandon Nimmo. He cost just over $1 and returned 18. Very
no stolen bases. Is that OBP or is that average?
This is batting average I'm talking about in an NFBC style 15-team league.
$18?
$18.
He didn't steal any bases, Ariel.
He did steal
Zero.
a few. Was it 0?
One. No more than one.
I'm not sure. Quickly looking it up, he did steal 3 bases, but even without that, I mean, he had 102 runs, 16 RBIs, 274 batting average. It was an $18 value, so he was not, oh my God, a $30 player, but he only cost you $1. He's a last round pick. Another guy.
Wait. I gotta say something about that though.
Mm-hmm.
Smells a lot to me like Alex Verdugo's. Like Alex Verdugo smelled last year, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's very similar type.
It's a similar profile.
Yes, that's right.
Verdugo struggled this year. And if you paid 18 for him, which he paid off 18 last year, right? In 2021, he gave you, I want to say $18, just about that, right? And this year, what did he give you? Maybe 11, 9? And if you were counting on him for stuff, he didn't deliver it.
Well, when you buy somebody at $10, $13, the return on investment is going to be lower. But when you buy somebody for $1 and you get that profile,
Man, I'm just saying, where's Nimmo going? What I'm noting is that profile. I don't know how much it grows from there. So if Nimmo gave you $18 this year, maybe it does. I hope it does. I own him in that same dynasty league. But if he gave you $18 this year as a $1 player, it's great. It's amazing. But what is his price going into next year?
I don't think it's going to rise that much. And I'll give you another.
It's going to rise more than one.
It'll rise more.
It
Sure. I mean, what do you think about this next guy I'm going to talk about? Luis Arias. He was $1 cost, worth $17, and almost a batting average champ. $17. That's right. And nobody realizes it. But I mean, when you pick him, you people think batting average. You really can't predict that.
Yeah, power. Arias had power.
He did, and along with it, how about Jeff McNeil? He was worth $18, only cost you $2.
Wait a minute. I'm looking at Luis Arias for $5 here at RotoWire, earned auction value. Now, this is, I can adjust it from OBP to average. I can do that and see how that shifts things, but I'm looking at $5, and I owned him, Luis Arias, and sat him. Rob Mershak and I owned him in GDD. In fact, I think we traded Whitlock for him to Alex Cushing, and he sat quite a bit. So where's that $17 coming from?
This comes from the Fangraphs auction calculator with NFBC settings.
But what were the numbers, Ariel? What were the numbers
for which player?
For Luis Arias.
Luis Arias.
He hit.
I'm sorry.
16.
Oh no!
173
I apologize.
hits.
You were looking up. Luis Arias.
I was looking up. Yes.
No,
I'm sorry. I apologize. You're totally right. Luis Arias is definitely that player. No, I apologize. No, my bad. I thought you were talking. It just didn't. I was like, wait, Luis Arias was $18, and what? How did no? Because he was like $4 or $5.
Yeah.
Oh, no, my apologies. My bad. He was three. Luis Urias is $3. That's why it just didn't make sense. I
No,
apologize.
no, no,
Continue.
no, no. But again, we're talking about these undervalued players that really cost next to nothing that earn mid-teens or high-teens value. And you can count if the ATC projections had Arias top 4 batting average player, and boom, that's really where he went.
You were right. You were right on that. I interrupt again. Sorry, Ruvain. Do you mind if I'm just hitting Ariel with a couple of questions here, real quick?
Go ahead, pepper him all you want.
I'm peppering away like we're playing pepper. Stephen Kwan. At the beginning of the season, you called Stephen Kwan a poor man's Luis Arias. I'm looking at Stephen Kwan, and I'm thinking, and I watched him play the other night, and he had a home run in Yankee Stadium, but he was better than you thought, isn't he?
Stephen Kwan was absolutely better than we thought. He earned pretty much the same as he pretty much was Luis Arias, $20. He was obviously undrafted. Cost you a lot of fab early on, potentially. But yeah, you're right. He came through. I don't know if I was wrong about him, but I was certainly lower on him than I should have been.
And who do you have next year? Ruvain, I'm going to ask you. Ruvain, who do you have? Do you have Nimmo or Kwan next year?
I have Nimmo only because he has a longer track record of doing it. And plus, if he's coming back to the Mets are going to have a good lineup. If he's going to another team, he's going to go to a good team, probably. And if he bats leadoff like he is, he's an on-base machine. I mean, look at MLB Network ranked him very high the last couple of years, and he wasn't really even as good as he was this year. He had a career year in a contract season. So I think I still get him over Stephen Kwan. But if you can get Stephen Kwan at a discount, I'm going Stephen Kwan.
Yeah. Ariel, what do you think?
I think the answer depends on what his cost next year, but in terms of player, they're in the same realm. I mean, we're talking about
$12 players. You have either one. They're both $12 in the auction. You can have the one you want. Who are you grabbing?
The answer is I'm indifferent. If I think that they're roughly the same, Kwan steals more, so maybe maybe him for that reason. But
he steals a lot more. But
value-wise, it's close.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
No, it's
interesting. It's an interesting little grouping.
Yeah, just to mention a few more. Andres Jimenez, obviously, was a $3 ADP, worth $22, just crazy value. I just want to mention 2 catchers that I think were not MVPs, but lesser value that really contributed. Catchers, Eric Hasse, he was returned $8, pretty much a back-end second catcher. And Travis d'Arnaud, $3 cost in a 15-team league, and he returned $16 of value. I was high on both of them going into the season, and had, I think, one of them in almost every single league. So there you go. Let's move on to undrafted hitters. We mentioned Kwan as one potential one, but who are the undrafted hitter MVPs of the league?
Go to Ruvain, please. I need a second.
All right, Ruvain, go ahead.
Okay, the player that stood out for me, and the reason why I know is because he was on the Mets last year, so I did follow him a little bit, and he got traded. Brandon Drury. From January 1st to April 1st, his ADP was 738, or basically the 50th round in a draft and hold scenario. He batted .263, 28 homers, 87 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 87 runs, and eligible everywhere except for shortstop, pitcher, and catcher. So if you had a hole in your team and you picked him up very early, he could have filled in anywhere, and he would have done exceptionally well, and he was basically free.
Ian?
Michael Harris Jr. was the guy for me. That's the guy. He was amazing. And he was a prospect, right? Who came up and dominated pretty much as a 21-year-old. Changed that lineup, changed that team. Michael Harris. That's my guy.
Yep. Those are the top 2 in terms of profitability here. Christian Walker was pretty much a late round pick in a 15-team league, undrafted in 12-team leagues, returned $21. He was the guy. A couple of the guys lower below. Taylor Ward earned a nice pretty penny. Thairo Estrada. How about catcher William Contreras? $14 value. And Nico Horner. I picked him up in a lot of leagues. Nico Horner. Power speed combo, just helped you all around in every category. Excellent pickup. And he was hurt for some of the year also, and he still was one of the best undrafted players. Moving on to starting pitchers. Who was the starting pitcher MVP of the year, Ruvain?
Well, again, I'm going by the fact that they're going to help your team win your league. So the MVP, I mean, you can say Sandy Alcantara. He's been just amazing, pitching so many innings and compiling. He's just a compiler, a great compiler, and one of the top pitchers in baseball. But I'm going to go with Zach Gallen. He was
That's
going
good.
between 155 and 160, which is about, in that range preseason, but he ended up in a 5x5, 34th overall, the 10th ranked starting pitcher. If you'd have drafted number 11 pitcher preseason, you would have been taking Julio Urias. So if you're getting Zach Gallen between pick 155 and 160 or in that range, and he ends up being a top 10 pitcher, he is your MVP for your team, and he helps you win your league.
Ian?
Ugh, so many good ones here. So many good ones. All right, I'm going to say Shane McClanahan. And I've got guys who were later who were also great. But McClanahan was so dominant this year. I mean, but so was Dylan Cease. And they were kind of in the same area. Two guys that I was not remotely interested in. The guys, Framber Valdez, like, gosh, Doggett, he was amazing. Tristan McKenzie. But if I have to pick one, I'll tell you, for me, it was Yu Darvish. Yu Darvish was on every one of my, not everyone, but many of my better teams this year. And he was a sort of a surprise. But McClanahan was better, and he was taken around the same area. I'm going to go Shane McClanahan. That's what I'm going to go with. Eno Saris dominated the league with Shane McClanahan and Dylan Cease in AL Labor. Dominated with those two guys.
I'm Darvish. I'll take an L on him. I didn't think he would do a great season, and I'll take another L on this guy, Justin Verlander. He was drafted, I thought, ridiculously high, coming back off of surgery, older. You think the innings would break down, but he returned $37 worth of value. Just absolutely.
And how much was he going in the auctions at that point?
$21, which was kind of high. And I'm like, wow.
It was.
The
It was
risk,
high.
the risk of that to me was too great to do. I'll take the L on it. I you know what? If you told me a similar pitcher, would you draft him again next year? I would still say no, because I think the risk factor is way too high. But obviously, he worked out. And he earned, $16 surplus value, being 37. The two guys actually I have as the MVPs are Nestor Cortez, cost you $2.
Yeah, okay, but he was a reserve guy in GDD. We got him in the reserves in the fourth round of the reserves.
Well, then GDD didn't do a really great job there, as he earned $21. And Tony Gonsolin, high skills.
That's a good one.
I always
Very
believed
good.
in Gonsolin. I was high on him every year, but this year only went for $2, and he returned 24. So those are the top guys.
I like Gallen. Can I say I really like the Gallen pick there?
Yes.
I really like that Gallen pick. I think that's
Gallen is the third highest surplus gain of any pitcher this year.
Yeah, it was really surprising. It was not
What
expected.
about undrafted starting pitchers, or undrafted starting pitchers, or pitchers who turned into that?
I got this one.
Is it Spencer Strider, Ian?
It is Spencer Strider. Not only is it Spencer Strider, but I traded for Spencer Strider today with Ron Chandler. Steve Gardner and I traded Francisco Alvarez and Shane Baz and Esteury Ruiz for Spencer Strider today. And I'm so dang happy because we get him for 10 years. And I love, love, love Spencer Strider. The best. The best. My favorite pitcher to watch.
Ruvain, what about you?
Well, I can't bear to watch him because he plays the Mets, and he played the Mets
Sorry.
19 times.
That's why
But-
Chandler traded him, by the way, because he's a huge Mets fan.
And he
just like
took
you guys.
Francisco Alvarez. Is that why?
He took Frank. That's what. Hey, man.
That's what he wanted. There
That's
you go.
what he. Come on now. And we still have Rutschman, so we were able to make that move.
Well, I'm going to go with another Dodger pitcher, Tyler Anderson. Preseason ADP 601. He threw 178 innings, only 138 strikeouts, but because he played for the Dodgers, 15 wins, a 2.57 ERA, a whip of 1 for 178 innings. That stabilizes your team. It stabilizes your ERA. It stabilizes your whip. This is a great pick. If you got him early, you got on the bandwagon early, you got him, you got an ace. You basically got your ace, and he was free.
Can I argue that he's not an ace? You can't throw 138 strikeouts in 174 innings or whatever it was and be considered an ace. I don't think. You're giving up too much on that.
Okay, but the reason why
Too much
people
on the
would spend
strikeouts.
money for him, the reason why people spend money for him is because they probably had Kershaw or they had someone they paid a lot of money for, and he was going to be their replacement value.
I get it.
Get him.
I get what you're saying. I just can't. You
And
can't
he
call him.
saved their seasons.
He's a
He
three.
saved people's seasons.
Okay, but still, he's a 3. 2. Is he a 2? I mean, what is he going for next year in the auction? What is Tyler Anderson going for next year in the auction?
I'm not sure I would buy him next year, but
You have to.
I'm
You have to
not
buy him.
no.
Dave's right.
I
You're
mean,
gonna have to buy
I mean,
him.
buy him relative to where he's going to go.
Right, but how much?
No, I think he's going to go. I think he's going to go too high. Because he doesn't have the strikeouts. I think he's going to go too high.
But what's
and
the
it's
number?
Not worth it.
What is the number? How high? I mean, how high does he go? 15, 18? Does he go to 18?
I can't see myself paying more than 12 or 13 for him.
Right.
Only because he doesn't give you the strikeouts. But I can see him going higher than that. But if you got him this year at pick 601 or off the waiver wire, it's
But he's not an ace. But he's not an ace.
No, well, no, he's not an ace. Okay, so I misspoke. He's not an ace, but he saved your team if you had an injury to a starting pitcher.
Well played.
If you
and he was a great
DeGrom
asset.
or Kershaw or something like that, he was the best fill-in possible.
And I'll give you another name that I think is better than Anderson, at least for next year. Kyle Wright. He has the strikeouts. Same type of innings, 180 innings is quite a bit. 174 strikeouts, 1.16 whips. He basically cut his walks in half, and he grew his strikeouts tremendously. You will see a little bit of an ERA pushback next year. His strand rate was a little bit lucky, but everything else looks smooth. So he's probably going to be closer to a mid-threes ERA, but whip is going to be really, really manageable.
And a good team. And a really good
team. A lot of wins.
21 wins?
21 wins this year. He pitches a lot of innings, goes deep into games, and he's just some really, really, really valuable, and somebody I think could be a value. I mean, Max Fried probably has a much lower strikeout than him, strikeout rate. I'm not saying I trust him more than Max Fried, but Wright showing some very decent value.
But can I say something though, please? This is going to be a theme of mine through the entire show.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Wright was selected with the number 5 pick in the draft. I don't remember what the year was, 2017, 2018. Playing dynasty baseball, if you're in a redraft league, having to understand the kids who are coming gives you such a huge advantage in redraft because Kyle Wright's on your radar from 2018, so that when he throws up a 5.46 ERA last year, you have an opinion about it. So that when he starts to show, because he showed, it was crazy. He, if I remember correctly, it was in April he came up for a start like mid-April on a Monday. I think it was on a Monday. And pitched like lights out, 7 innings, no runs, 9 strikeouts. You can call me out on that if I'm wrong. But then he came back on Sunday and he did it again against a good team, if I remember. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was the Pirates. Who knows? Man, as late as you guys say, who's playing the Pirates this week? See, I'm a fan of the show. But knowing that Kyle Wright has that pedigree puts you in position that when you come to the NFBC or you come to your own draft that matters so much to so many people, you know these players. And so I highly recommend people, you don't have to dive into a dynasty league right away, but start to look at the prospects. Top 100, that's all you really got to look at. And then look at the draft and just get these names in your head. Because those names that are at the top of that draft are going to be the names that are going to be coming up in June one year. And some of them are going to be post-hype guys, like Kyle Wright. But if you know that he's a post-hype guy, and not just some random guy who the Braves are going to give a start to, you have a huge advantage. And you're leaving money on the table if you don't.
Yeah, no doubt. It's definitely worth knowing. And that is one of my holes in fantasy baseball is I don't know the prospects all that well. As I tell the listeners, in general, rookie prospects are not a great investment. However, if you do know pedigree and you do have the information, you can pick out some of the cream of the crop. And I was talking to Ian earlier today, actually, off the air, that projections themselves don't have as accurate a history on prospects, right? There's less information that's more credible. So to the extent,
what you have to go by is the scouts, right? And the guys like Corbin Carroll, right? Who I'll talk about when we talk about pickup hitters. He's a guy that I've been following since he was the 16th pick. I know that one for a fact. He was the 16th pick of the Arizona Diamondbacks in 2019, and then struggled with some injury. Then was at the what do they call that one during 2020? Like the place where everyone played, which I still think is why we're seeing so many kids come up now because they're really developing them at that site. that was called the alternate site. I think the alternate site should be a regular part of baseball. I don't think kids should just be out in Tennessee playing baseball. I think that they should be training at that age. And Corbin Carroll did do that. And if you're following his career and you know that he had a shoulder injury in 2021 where he might have gotten a cup of coffee, then you were ready for him coming into 2022 when he was going to come up, and you could get in 3 weeks before he came up because you know he's coming. You can't know that information. And then a guy like Corbin Carroll, maybe he wasn't everything this year, but Gunnar Henderson sure was. Gunnar Henderson helped a lot to the teams that picked him up. You know? So anyway, I just think it's an important for people who are like, I do all this work. Make sure you're doing that work too. It's really important.
Yeah. Just to continue with the MVPs quickly on relief pitchers. To me, it's no doubt it's Ryan Helsley, who turned $20. Really was a waiver pickup almost. In fact, I take a look at the auction calculator. The top 4 or 5 highest values as compared to their auction price, all were pickups on the waiver wire. Helsley, Daniel Bard.
That was going to be mine.
Yeah, Evan Phillips.
That was going to be mine.
Evan Phillips returned $12. Ross Stripling returned 11. Although he started, it doesn't count. He started. Sorry. Paul Sewald returned $12 of value. Really, like $1 at most. Wasn't picked up in half the leagues. These guys, some of the value comes right from the waiver wire in relief pitchers. Maybe a thought as to what we should do next year. It definitely factors in that this is true. Ian, your thoughts on who the MVP of? Helsley is the top. And anybody else to mention?
Well, Bard for sure. I mean, Bard would have definitely been my choice. And I'm gonna give you credit. You know, we talk about things that you missed. One of the things you got dead right was you got to make sure that you get one of the top guys if you're going to be serious at this game this year. And it was partially because of the strike, and we didn't know, there was nothing settled. So there was only like 9-10 guys that you could believe in. And even then you could get screwed. But I remember there was a lot of talk about, do we just let all the closers come off the wire? And you were like, no, don't do that. Like, you got to get one, and then you can play for the other one or the other 2 or the other 3. And I really played by that. I had you in my head that whole time. And I think you were very much right. You were very right about that.
Yeah, I mean, even guys at the bottom, who had the job at the time, just take them. You never know. When you're all the way down at the end of the draft and you're taking these very possible picks, it doesn't cost you much to get it. We could talk about it now, but in terms of the correct saves closer strategy. If you want to take a look at where the value was this year, there was really 2 sections of where the value was. One is don't pay for anybody, and the guys who I just mentioned right off the wire, and there was others. But the real best value were the closers Clase, Diaz, Presley, Romano. That whole section returned. They didn't really gain in value, but again, people, since you overpaid for closers everywhere, it's the least amount of overpay was in that section. So if you bid on Hendricks, if you bid on Hader, those were losers in my opinion. But numbers 4 through 8, so we're talking about $18 to $22 closers, auction equivalent. Those were really the stuff that came out. The real strategy, I think, for closers this year was get one of those top at pay about $20, and whoever is the cheapest at that level. I mean, I had Diaz in a league. I had Presley in a league. I don't think I had Romano, but I think, Ruvain, you had Romano.
I had Romano in a couple leagues.
Yeah, or go to some of the bottom. I mean, I had Bednar in some leagues. That was okay. I had Taylor Rogers in some. They gave me a little bit of a season. But really, that range, if you didn't get that, you were really a zero in closers. And the question is whether is that true going into 2023? I kind of think it is. I think that the top are going to be an overpay because they're going to force you to pay second, third, crazy round value for it. But if you wait a little bit longer and you get the number 6, 7, even though you think it's a little bit expensive, those actually hold more value, and you kind of need them as saves are dwindling. Do you disagree with that, Ruvain? Go to you first.
I do disagree with that. I don't think it's gonna be the same as this past year because of the lockout. We're gonna have everyone's gonna know what job they have. The jobs are gonna be more secure. The question is, are more teams gonna go to committee? Because look at Seattle. You mentioned Paul Sewald. The guy I wanted to mention was Rafael Montero. His ADP was in the 600s. He ended up with 14 saves, 5 wins, a 2.37 ERA, a 102 WHIP, 70 strikeouts in 68 innings, and he's great value. He was just a great value off the waiver wire, and you didn't have to pay anything for him.
Yeah, but
So
it's tough to
if you're
start him though, Ruvain. It was tough to start him. I had him in one league, and like you'd start him, you'd be like, all right, let's give it a go. Like when Presley was hurt, so it's tough because then he would get him in a bunch for a week, and he would catch.
and how hard was it to start? How hard was it to start Josh Hader and Taylor Rogers when they were crashing this year? Also,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same. You can go both ways with that. So I understand that, but the middle relievers gave you a lot of value this year, and I think you don't have to overpay. I was very much against overpaying for the pitchers in the beginning in the draft season. I did not want to do it. I didn't think it was worth the value, and I thought middle, and just take some darts at the end. The problem is a lot of times the darts that we picked, both me and Ariel, they just didn't hit, so it screwed us up, and we ended up not finishing well because we didn't have the number of saves we needed, and we didn't play the waiver wire correctly. But if we can fix those two issues and hit those darts, then you can make up for not paying the big bucks for the top closers.
Yeah. Again, I don't think we should be paying second, third round value, but getting a middle to late number one closer is really a need.
I don't know. At the end of the third, you're not taking Edwin Diaz?
No, I'm not.
Really?
No, I think there's other value more important, and you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose value on the Edwin Diaz in the third round. There are other more important things to get. But he'll
get you more strikeouts than Tyler Anderson if you pick him.
Nah.
I mean, how can you not?
Right.
But I would take a fifth, sixth round closer who I think is probably a little bit overpriced if they're the number
in the main
8, 7,
event. Mershak and I took Taylor Rogers and Gregory Soto, which actually worked out for us quite nicely for the time that before Rogers, literally, we got him out right when he was starting to blow up, so it didn't hurt us. And then they traded him and we dumped him. But that first half of the season, I think it's like 24, 25 saves, or maybe not that many, maybe 20, 21, but gave us a bunch of saves. And Soto was just Soto. I mean, he is what he is, and he got us saves. But there it is. That's closers for now. Closers for now. It'll change, but I agree with Ruvain that it's going to be different this year.
Okay. Well, it's good that we're discussing it. I do have a question. I asked this on the show last year to you, Ian. Here's a question, and here is your response. And I'm interested to see.
Are you actually going to play my response from last year?
Of course.
Oh my God.
I thought it was a good response, and I agreed with it on the show last year. I'm just wondering if we have a different take this year. I think it'll be interesting. Take a look.
Oh boy.
Which is more true? A, and of course, again, these are both true, but which is more important? A, would you say that leagues are won on draft day, or would you say B, leagues are won with the in-season moves and pickups? Okay, so that's the question. We're asking which is more important, and of course, they're both important, draft day or in-season, and your answer, Ian, was?
Here's what I would say. It depends on the format. If it's a 15-team league or higher, it's 100% draft day, because without drafting well, you're constantly fighting, okay? But if it's a 12-team league, like the Tout Wars head-to-head, the draft is less important because there's much more value to be had on the waiver wire. And you can find the hot hand and develop the hot hand, right? Someone like Cedric Mullins was not drafted in a 12-team league. He is going to be drafted in a 15-team league. And so I would argue, along with Ruvain, that what happens on draft day is mostly determinative of what you're going to see over the course of the season. I mean, it's sort of obvious at this point.
All right, so you were basically saying that obviously both are important and the league size matters, but I think you were a little bit more towards draft is more important because it sets you up than the in-season play. Do you have a different feeling this year in general?
Nope. I do not. I think that I think they're both really important. I think in a 12-team head-to-head league, mixed 12-team, the draft is not as important. I mean, it's. I think the draft is still most important. I think the choices you make on draft day, I think the preparation that you put in before draft day, I know everyone's thinking about football. I'm not. I'm just thinking about baseball. But the preparation before the draft is so important. My goodness. It will determine your season. You can fix things. You can try. I'm a big trade fan. I like to trade. But if you don't do well in the draft, it's tough. It's really tough. You've got to draft well. You have to come out with value. Sorry, see, I did a little Ariel there. I wasn't gonna, but there you go. You got to find value. You have to find the value there and zig when they're zagging and grab guys because Otherwise, you're chasing. You're chasing home. I mean, a lot of people talking about chasing home runs. You know, don't. Not if you get them in the draft. Get them in the draft. Get your speed in the draft. Get your saves in the draft. Pitching, I'll tell you one thing is I trust myself personally on pitching quite a bit to find it. So if I'm gonna, you know, find the Spencer Strider, find the Reed Detmers, and this is in 15 team leagues, find the Hunter Greens. You know, I like that. I like trading for pitching a lot. But the draft, you got to get your hitting, and you got to get your speed, and you got to get your power, and you got to get that stuff because you can't find it on the wire. You cannot find. You can find at bats on the wire, and every once in a while you can run into somebody, but largely you can find pitching on the wire. Pitching makes itself clear. So for me, it's the draft still. Ariel.
Well, Ruvain, I wanted to see you first. Do you were agreeing with that also last year? Do you still agree with that, Ruvain?
Yeah, I still agree with that. You have to get your base, and once you have your base, then you can start playing around. But I also want to add to it a little bit that if you're going to plan so much for the draft, why don't you plan also for your in-season stuff and have a strategy and actually stick to it? Because a lot of times people go crazy in the first couple weeks, couple months, they blow all their fab right away, and then they have nothing left, and they're still chasing what they were chasing back in April, which is what you shouldn't be doing. So if you can have a plan and draft properly and draft to your strengths, then you can always work on the problems and everything else during the course of the season. So I still think the draft is still more important. You get your base, and then you can keep track of everything and have a plan for in-season pickups and stick to it. That's the hardest thing. It's like a diet. It's a great idea, but people just don't stick to it, and that's the problem. If you can stick to it, then you're good to go.
Okay, can I say something, Ariel? I'm jumping in again. Sorry, it's
Sure.
under the radar in me. Let me just say, you can't spend all your fab like that. So, like the people who are doing that, you won't win that way. You just won't. I don't believe in. I remember when George Kirby came out and people were spending $500. George Kirby was great this year. I had drafted him in AL Labor. He was a big part of how I did second place there. But when he came out and it was like $500, can't do that. You cannot spend all your fab and then be hamstrung the rest of the season. You just can't. You have to be disciplined about it, or you're going to run out of steam. You need the cavalry, and fab is literally the cavalry. So try not to spend it until you need it. Really be focused on that. I think it's so very important.
So I don't disagree with both of you on which is more important. I think that you're correct, and the league size matters. The more shallow the league size, the more the in season matters, because it's not a run about getting early plate appearances and at bats and stuff like that. However, I will say, from last year to this year, I do think that it has shifted a little bit more towards the in season. I do think that getting the in season right and spending the time on it matters more today than it did last year and 3 years ago. Looking at projections and looking at how ADP has performed and everything year to year, I will tell you that more of the value that you acquire comes less from the draft and more from the waiver wire the last couple of years. Like there's a downward slope. There's more value hemorrhaged from the draft as we go on. Assets are more fungible. Players are more fungible in terms of their talent. There's also way more injuries. And because of that, it's gone that way. And I will say there's a distinction. You were alluding to it, Ian, especially the pitching. Pitching has become much more fungible, that the draft matters less now than it did a few years ago. Again, I still think it matters most, but it's heading that way. And my question to you, which I think is a good thought question, is, being that it's mattering a little bit less, do you think that we should be placing more of a focus, especially early on in early rounds of drafts, top 8 rounds or so, on drafting lower risk players? Like, the heck with Byron Buxton anymore, the heck with Mondesi who gets hurt. Why even throw that risk? Because if more of the value comes from outside of the draft, don't we want as sure of a base as we can? So sure, we don't have that thrill of Byron Buxton going 30-30 and oh my God, but he could get hurt. Let's just avoid the risk. Just get players who hold value, and this way, when we focus more on the in-season, we just add to the base of value that we've accumulated. Do you think that's true, and we should really be focusing on, as players, on lower risk, Ian?
Yes, I think I do. I think I do agree with that. I think that there's wisdom with that. Yes. Ruvain?
I 100% agree, and that's why a lot of our teams, me and Aro, they didn't work this year because we had too much risk to start the season off. We had DeGrom in a ton of leagues, which strapped us because some leagues we didn't pay that much, some leagues we did. Having that and having a bench spot taken up by a guy who's not going to pitch until August, which it happened to be, it's not worth it. It's not worth the value of losing those months when you could have had a more profitable player during those course of months because you're not going to make up the money. You're not going to make up that profit.
Looking back, I can't believe how DeGrom ended up on so many of our leagues. Maybe because we're Mets fans, but that's just it's so not like us to say. Just we're the get rid of risk people. All of a sudden, like, oh, let's take DeGrom. Now, granted, we did take him before he was injured when he was actually pitching in spring training, and he was throwing, and he looked like himself. Then is when we picked him. But I just that's one of the things that I just didn't listen to my own advice on DeGrom because he was going for $17. Well, the guy could be $30. All we could do is we need a half a season and we win. I mean, that was just not a person that that's a lesson that we should be listening to our own advice on DeGrom like that. I can't believe we
Exactly.
didn't.
We should have spent that $17, $18, or $19 on a Verlander instead of a DeGrom.
Well, Verlander also had risk. I do want to say this though. And I've argued this for the last couple of years. Why does Freddie Freeman always go in the back end of the first round, and sometimes even the second round? The guy returns the same type of value every single year. He helps in so many categories. Batting average is a hard one to find, and he's not a zero in stolen bases. Throws 10 a year.
He's a value in stolen bases.
This year he was a tremendous value, but at the very worst, he throws 8, 9 stolen bases. Why isn't he more because of the low risk? Why shouldn't he be valued much higher? Like, why is he not going number 7 or number 6? He's returning more value than any random person in the first round, right? Why are we picking a pitcher? Why are we picking any pitcher, Garrett Cole, over him? We should be pitching Freddie Freeman. Get that base. No?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I had him in Tout Wars. It's how I was lucky enough to come out on top with Machado and Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. That was my base.
Yeah.
And that's all base.
And my point here is that I think that the low risk, has to be factored in, and that's got to bump up the value that you're willing to pay for Freddie Freeman. And he should be pushed up in ranks because of the low risk, especially since we see how this is all playing out, that waiver wire is more important. Pick Freddie Freeman. Everyone will say why. I mean, that's the guy. And it's harder to do in drafts because you're in a certain spot. Obviously, if it gets to the 14th spot and you have him, sure, you pick him. But in an auction, it should be much easier to pick Freddie Freeman. Like, you should be wanting him in everything.
The question should not be why, but why not? There's no reason not to. Which is why I think, and I'm probably in the minority in this, I think Jose Ramirez should be the number 1 overall pick next year. He is the most solid, consistent guy. He's durable. He plays almost every game. He gives you stolen bases. He gives you power. He hits for average. He does everything, and he plays third base, which is going to be a little bit shallow. So, why would he not be the number 1 pick over? I could see Trey Turner.
Turner is equally less risky. I'd say one. Maybe
Turner has more injury.
Well, listen. This year, people drafted Turner. They thought he'd steal 40, 50 bases. He didn't do that.
No,
he didn't do
still
that.
Gave you 30. What would he give you? 25?
He gave you 27.
27? Yeah. I mean, he was the number 2 player. He was the number 2 player on. Yeah. I like looking at the ESPN player rater. My friend Tristan Cockcroft.
I think your argument's right, Ruvain. Although I'd say Turner is included in the Turner's the number 1.
I think Turner's
okay. So he's a 1A. Yeah. There's no reason why he shouldn't be.
So you're going to take Jose Ramirez ahead of Aaron Judge?
Yes. I 100% will. I think Aaron Judge, this was a career year for him. You're going to be overpaying for him. It's like signing a guy to a contract after he has a career year and then has a down year after that. How many times have we seen that? It happens to everyone. He is a human being. He is a person. He's a large human being, but he's a human being, and he's susceptible to all these pressures just like everyone else. Everyone has a
Nah, wait
damn
a
year.
minute.
Everyone has.
Wait a
Do
minute. Wait a
okay,
minute,
do you
dude.
do you think if he goes? Do you think if he goes to San Francisco or he goes someplace else, do you think he's going to hit 70 home runs? Do you think he's going to earn back his
No.
value?
No, but I think, will he earn $43 that you're gonna have to pay for him in the auction with the number two? I mean, if we're talking about him, like, let's do a 15-team auction.
Not
okay?
OBP. We're talking batting average, okay?
Yeah, batting average,
batting.
NFBC style. Okay, so we're at, for Jose Ramirez. No, Trey Turner, I think, is a $45 player going next year, 44 or 45, something like that. I think Judge is 43, 44. I think that's what he's going to cost you next year. I think that he's not going to give you $63 worth of value, and he's not going to cost you $63 worth of value. And if he does, just don't buy him. But if we equate that, and then I say Jose Ramirez 42, 43, right? That's 1, 2, 3 for me. I don't know.
Okay,
I
well,
don't
but
know.
Aaron
I'm sorry. I don't mean to
Judge-
be tough on you on it.
No.
And
I
the
understand
third base
that.
is good.
But-
I like that a lot.
But Aaron Judge, look at these games he's played from 2018 until now: 112, 102 throughout 2020, 148, 157. He played a career high in games this year.
yeah, he
okay,
did. But the last
he's
2 years,
been,
but the years
and
earlier,
he's been injured in 3 out of the last 5 years.
yeah, I
So
understand.
I'm gonna agree with Ruvin on this. I think that Ramirez, for the risk concern, should probably be, not by much, should probably be valued a little bit ahead of Judge. Or I'll say it this way: Judge will be overvalued. Ramirez could be undervalued, if you can think about it that way.
Okay, I can buy that. I can buy
yeah.
that. So, but if you're spending $43 on either player, you're taking Jose Ramirez. Both of you are going to take Jose Ramirez over Aaron Judge for $43.
Yes, stolen bases. You get
No,
stolen. You get some more
stolen
stolen
bases are not as far apart as you think, my friend. I mean, how many stolen bases did Ramirez have? And then I'll be happy to tell you what Judge's numbers are.
I mean, you think that he's going to repeat? Judge is going to repeat it?
I have no reason not to think. So, how many bases did Ramirez steal?
So Ramirez stole only 20 bases.
20
this
bases.
year.
20
20
bases.
bases. And Judge stole 16 bases. So that's close. I mean, definitely. But how many runs and RBIs did Ramirez give?
91 runs, 126 RBIs for Ramirez.
133 runs with 131 RBI.
Yeah. Oh, there's no question that Judge had the better year, but of course you can't project that. Again.
But wait. What was Ramirez's average?
Ramirez batted .280.
And Judge batted .311. And this is obviously silly because we know what Judge hit. But so how many home runs did Ramirez hit?
29.
62. So if we
Well,
look at the
we know.
numbers, well, okay, right. But if you look at the numbers, how are you going to take a guy with 40 less runs, 30 less home runs, 15 less RBIs, 4 more steals, and 30 lower average points?
So
How are you gonna do
you're
that?
telling me that there's going to be no regression in Judge next year?
I think there.
So
is definitely
according
gonna be some
to
regression in Judge.
just to give you a last point in this discussion about Judge, according to the Zips 2023 projections, Aaron Judge is a 4.8 WAR player, and Jose Ramirez is a 5.6 expected WAR player.
Is that with defense?
That's with defense without stolen bases. So it's not. I mean,
Okay.
it's not a fantasy.
All right,
It's not a
okay.
fantasy statistic.
All right. You
mean,
guys
you know.
are smart fellows. You guys are pretty smart dudes. So
Yeah.
I'm out here banging the drum for the guys who's gonna be playing right field for
Sure.
your team next year.
Well,
You know, but I'll enjoy him. Till then.
all right. So there you go. I do want to ask a couple of strategy questions here. What are any waiver wire lessons that you have learned from 2022, Ian?
I am more sure that watching film is valuable than ever. I just think watch the player play and you'll know what you're getting. And then once you see what you're getting, decide how much he's worth and then go a few dollars over that. That's it. So, but I don't hate talking about Spencer Strider. Traded for him today with Ron Shandler. A lot of fun. Really happy. Going to love it every day for the next 7 years until he gets hurt, and then that'll suck. But I've talked about this on my show. I talked about it on RotoWire show. But I was looking for a Garrett Whitlock in the National League for my NL only team, And so I'm scouring the box scores, and I see Strider 3 innings, 6 strikeouts, no walks, no hits, no runs. And I went, what the heck is that? And I go to my MLB app on my iPad, and I watch 6 strikeouts by Spencer Strider, and I go, what? That's the best pitcher I've seen. And so I went and got him about a week or two before everyone else.
By the way, do you have any potential candidates as the Spencer Strider, Garrett Whitlock type for next year? I throw like I remember Chris
Go
Sale.
to Ruvain first, and then go to Ruvain on that one, because I actually did. I just have to remember. I didn't write it.
All right. Well, what are your lessons, Ruvain, from the waiver wire?
Okay, now contrary to everything I said already about the waiver wire, I think I should spend more money earlier on because if you don't, because I didn't fill my holes quick enough, and I always lost on the guys that I wanted by literally like $5 or $10 in a $1,000 fab league, and you know what? It was not worth it. I needed to spend that little, not go crazy. Not go crazy, not spend $500 on a player, but spend a little bit more and get that one or two players that could have filled in those holes in my team earlier on, so my team wasn't trying to play catch up the whole time. And I think that's probably the biggest thing for me.
You know, Phil Dussault, I stole this from Dussault. I was listening to his, and I was in the main event with Dussault this year. Rob and I were our team was in the main event, so I was playing against him all season. It was awesome to watch him play and also to get to know him a little bit. And I listened to him, I think it was on DiPietro's podcast. I think that's where it was. If it's not, I apologize. And he was talking about his fab philosophy. Yeah. And he said, I don't want to spend $300 on a player. I would rather spend $30 on 10 players to have 10 of those chances. So like, don't go for the hot girl at the dance.
Well, that's the return on investment thing. Is that if you spend 301, you're going to have the guy earn 300 of fab. Otherwise, you lose money on investment. If you spread your risk on 10 different guys, you only need a few of them to hit, and they don't have to hit for that much for you to make up your return. Right?
I didn't know that there would be math. That's for anybody who's old enough to get that Chevy Chase joke imitating Gerald Ford. I was not told there would be math. I don't think it's exactly right. But yes, so suspend just that there's a trick to it. There's a trick to fab. It's like, figure out what you think it is. I'll say it now, and somebody's going to hear it, and then they'll use it against me, and that's okay. Figure out what they're going to spend. What is it going to cost? Like Spencer Strider, what was he going to cost? All right, he's going to cost $18 out of 1,000 in NL only that week, and I wanted him. So it was going to cost. I think it was going to cost 12 in my head. So if I want him, I got to go to 18. If I really want him, I'm going to go to 27, just in case somebody else really wants him too. And I think I may have been the only bid that week, or someone else put him in for $1 or something, because it's an only league. But that's how you do it. You gotta imagine. You have to imagine what everyone else is going to do, what they're feeling, and if you want him, go get him. You got to pay the extra bit.
Before you tell me you're a Spencer Strider candidate for next year, my lesson in Fab is I think that I did not focus enough on looking at the schedule in the next week or two and saying, you know what, let me pick this one up because this guy is going to have a favorable schedule, or this guy's playing a lot in Colorado. Didn't maximize my player slots at the bottom, and I didn't churn enough. Like, I had Jonathan Scope in a few leagues, and I needed to churn that spot more. I don't know why I was holding on to him that much. I needed to churn and get guys who are playing more, get guys who are hitting up in Colorado. Didn't focus enough on that. And I think that, I played with Ruvain in the NFBC auction, and we didn't do great. And we're looking at our offense. I'm like, what the hell? We have Freeman, we had Goldschmidt, we had Acuna, we had Tommy Edman. What the hell did we do wrong? We're only mid-pack. And it's because all those other guys, like our buddy Steve Cozzolino, who won the auction championship, was in that league. They maximized more.
Congratulations, Steve.
Yeah, they maximize more spots. So that's something that I do think that need to pay attention a little bit more. All right, what's your Spencer Strider candidate for 2023?
Jeez. No one. No one's going to be that good. No one. I don't even want to put that out there because Strider looked as good as Jose Fernandez looked when Jose Fernandez came out, right? And what have we spent 10 years trying to find the next Jose Fernandez? There's no finding him. He's gone. I don't know that somebody's going to come along and do what Strider did, but I'm totally biased guys that might be good. Grayson Rodriguez might be real good. Andrew Painter was ridiculous this year. Really, really good. I like Yuri Perez an awful lot too. I'm going. James Anderson is my prospect guy, and those are the guys that he has high. He also has Ricky Tiedemann. I may be saying that wrong, and I should not. It could be Tiedemann. Kyle Harrison in San Francisco is an interesting pitcher. Taj Bradley, though I don't like Rays pitchers, which is silly because I love Tyler Glasnow. But those are the guys that could come up, and it's hard. It's really hard. It's really hard to come up from the minors. I guess the sleeper is Hunter Green for me. I just love Hunter Green. I think he's dandy, just dandy.
Yeah. Saris was saying that he's a buy high candidate for next year, that he costs a little bit too much. Why are people overspending? But might be worth it. His Stuff
Huge,
Plus
man.
model really likes Green.
He's a dominant pitcher.
Yeah.
But he'll be expensive. He's going to be expensive. And you got to decide if you're going to put $14, $15. What Jesus Luzardo did this year was so fantastic. It was awesome. And a little tip of the hat to Ariel Cohen. There was a couple of points at the end of Tout Wars where I was really like, God, I got to figure out a way to pull this off. And I called Ariel for advice often on Sundays. Not often, but enough. And he's like, I think you definitely should start Jesus Luzardo. I mean, he's been doing really well. And so I did that day. It was a touch and go, and then he was brilliant. So it was against the Mets, right? And Taijuan Walker was pitching the other way. And I was like, do I want both of them? And we get in this really interesting conversation. If you ever get the chance to talk to Ariel Cohen, it's fun. Smart guy.
Thank you very much.
You drew Ruvain.
Thanks.
There you go. A couple more strategy questions to touch about looking back at this year and preparing for next year. Everybody was always so preoccupied, speed. I don't know. I didn't really see it this year. The top guys in speed who came from the first few rounds, Cedric Mullins, Turner, Kyle Tucker, Semien, Real Muto, Jose Ramirez, Ronald Acuna. But it was pretty spread out. In the middle, there was a Rosarina, Edmund, Witt, Brian Hayes, Yelich, Swanson, Ahmed Rosario, and most of the big top...
Why didn't you mention Mateo? You just choose not to mention Mateo?
Huh?
You just choose not to mention Mateo?
No, my next point was saying that the top guys actually did not come from the high rounds. They were John Birdie, Jorge Mateo,
That's right.
Adolis Garcia, Kiner Falefa, Julio Rodriguez was even late, Jake McCarthy, nobody even picked, Dylan Moore, who wasn't worth much, but he stole a lot of bases, Michael Harris, Jimenez. What I'm telling you is that the speed was actually spread throughout the draft. It wasn't concentrated all that early this past year. If you paid a premium for speed, you did yourself wrong this year because you didn't have to, oh my God, I needed... Oh my God!
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You didn't do yourself wrong.
No. What I'm saying is, you should have gotten premium. You should have gotten stolen bases all throughout your draft. You didn't have to say.
But there's trading, Ariel. There's trading. In a lot of leagues, like in the GDD, which I was fortunate enough with Rob Marshak to win this year. I think we had 141 points out of 150, and you came in second with Derek Carty at 116, Dave Miller in third place. In that league, we built up a huge lead in stolen bases. So then you guys talked about this on your show, which was insane. You talked about the trade that Rob and I made where we traded Julio Rodriguez. So getting speed, you can never have too much speed. In NFBC, you can have too much speed, and that's a waste. But in any league where you can trade, speed is a currency, man. It's like gold.
Yeah, okay, so that point that if people are willing to trade for speed, then sure, that bumps up speed. But my point, though, was that if you were just looking from a draft perspective, you did not have to pay a huge premium for speed because it was distributed all around. And yes,
but wait, Ruvain, am I wrong here? But it just feels like you needed to get the Mullins. Part of the reason we had such a big thing is we got Mullins for $22 in that league. And he gave us 30 stolen bases, or 28, I forget, something like that.
Well,
30.
I'm one of the proponents who say don't pay for speed because you can get it later. I've been preaching that since day one.
Right.
So you can come away from the first couple of rounds. I mean, what if you got Bo Bichette and you said, oh yeah, I'm going to get speed from him? Now what? I mean, Bo Bichette didn't steal that many bases this year, and that was a big downer for a lot of people who had him because he said, oh, he's going to be a guy he may go 30-20. He can go 20-20 or something like that. He didn't do that. And if you're expecting those stolen bases out of him, or you're relying higher up and saying, oh yeah, Trey Turner's going to, like I mentioned before, Trey Turner's going to get you 40, 50, even 60 stolen bases, and you didn't get that, and you plan your whole draft around that, then you're screwed.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying there. But at the same time, you got to go find those guys later in drafts. It's just I hear you. This is what I was going to say. What I was saying about fab is the same way I personally think about speed. If I think you need 110 stolen bases to win the league, I'm shooting for 120 because there's going to be somebody who's going to drop below. And I'm telling you, you can always trade speed in August.
Yeah,
or
you
July.
can trade speed. And you
It's
can trade
worth a lot.
And you can trade closers also. So
They're worth a lot.
Yeah, having an excess of saves is always okay because then you can trade it. But again, so if you're playing that strategy, then sure. But assuming there's not, oh my God, I can always trade. Some leagues are tough to trade with. Some high money leagues you can't trade at all. Assuming we're not relying on trades here, there was more parity up and down the draft than you think.
Fair point.
You didn't have to overpay. Now again, you can't go out of the first 10 rounds and say, well, I'm not getting speed, I'll get my speed later. No. You have to get your speed all over the board is what I'm saying. You do not have to push up specifically speed.
But who else was pushed up? I mean, how high do you push up Bobby Witt Jr. now? He put up, 28, 30, something like that?
30, he had 30 stolen bases.
Yeah. Well, he's gonna have a value next year, but don't overpay the premium just because he has the
where do you take him? But I'm asking you, let's use an auction value on Bobby Witt Jr.
Hard to know because I haven't done projections for next year, but obviously a projection of 25, 30 stolen bases is going to factor very high. He could be
28 home runs.
Yeah, he might be a second, third round projection. Maybe he'll be second round.
He's going 13, 14.
Yeah, so he might be.
Here's a better question: who do you take first, Ronald Acuna Jr. or J-Rod or Julio Rodriguez?
Wow,
risk factor, injury factor. That's a hard question.
That's a really hard question.
They're basically the same player. They're basically and I'm expecting. Acuna said his knee's still bothering him, and I kind of hear that he's gonna have a whole normal offseason after the playoffs are done, and I think he's gonna be back to the player he was before.
Yeah, but you said that he was going to be fine in May, and he wasn't quite fine in May.
No. I said he's going to be playing in May, but he may not get the stolen bases until later, which I was wrong.
Right. I apologize.
Which I was wrong. He got the stolen bases early. That may have aggravated his knee issue, which is why he was going to be in the end. He should have taken it easy with the stolen bases earlier, and then pushed the gas later on.
Because you're the doctor, guys. If you're listening to the show, because I didn't know this until I found this out. Rouvain's like a doctor. I guess you would know that because we talked the injury report and everything. But he really is. He helped my kid when my kid hurt his back.
Yes, he does not he does not play one on TV.
He does not just injury guru online. He's actually the doctor who says, well, this is what's going on with your knee, and this is what's going on with your back, and this is what's going on with your
hamstring. I mean, that's one of his strengths. And
I know it's great.
Of course,
people.
Yeah.
You should know.
And I've had people in my office who have played with Bartolo Colon, who know him, who speak to him. I actually had a former, I can't say it because of HIPAA reasons, but I've had a former MVP of the National League come into my office.
Get out. That's fun.
I can't say who it is, but I've seen them. They showed me some hardware, so I know, and I recognize him from his baseball card. So I really see this stuff, and I think that Acuna will be 100%. My question is going to be, of the three, do you take Acuna, J-Rod, or Tatis? I think Tatis goes 30.
Oh, Tatis I'm not touching 15th. With it. Well, first of all,
you're not touching Tatis. You can't take the steroids
well, first of all, he's going to miss time, so you're going to have
to miss the first 40 games.
But aside from that, I don't want any of that risk. I mean, there's a chance he won't play this whole season because he'll
I'll
end
go
up.
to $22 on Fernando Tatis Jr. I'll do $22 right now.
I won't do anything that matters because somebody will take him before me. I don't want anything to do with him. It's the risk of I don't know what is he going to do? Skydiving and injure himself? I mean, who the heck knows? Who knows what he's going to do?
That which goes back to what you were saying earlier about just avoid the risk completely. But Rouvain's right. I mean, he's not a first round, second round, third round, fourth round, fifth round. Maybe fifth round.
We know the talent is, but you have to discount it for the risk. It just
you do. You really do.
A lot. And with him,
I was so wrong on Buxton. And you talked me out of it. You talked me out of Buxton at 16. I really was considering him at
Yeah.
16. If only if, because I didn't want Walker Buehler. Remember, I was like, I'm not taking a pitcher. I'm not taking a. We're not. Rob and I are. We are not taking a pitcher here. There's just no way. So it was like, what do we do if all the pitchers fall and we can't get Betts, Devers, which is how we started. We started Devers, Betts, and then we took Mullins in the third and Judge in the fourth, which was the base of the main event team.
There's one fantasy expert, I won't say his name, but he was like, you have him projected for 270. That guy, I bet $1 million he'll bat no less than 278. You should be betting your whole thing. What kind of projection? 270. Of course, Buxton hit 224. But, I mean, the risk there
that
is
guy does. I know that guy, and he doesn't sound like that.
Well,
he doesn't sound like that. I actually don't know that guy. I'm not saying. I'm just.
Well, even being the injury expert, I took Byron Buxton in a league this year. I took an actually in TGFBI because I tried to do a whole new strategy where I said, you know what, this is the year he's going to do well. And that league, I also took pocket aces, which the value fell to me, so I just decided to try it.
Who'd you start with?
I started with Cole and Scherzer.
15, 16, 14, 17?
No, it was like 6 or 7
12.
and
6, and I had the 6 pick, so 6 and whatever is on the way back.
Oh, yeah. I just can't with that guy.
All right, a couple of more strategy questions, and then we'll let you go here. But we touched on the closers already, but I do want to talk about catchers. We actually saw pretty good value. I mean, the pockets of the best value for catchers this year was catchers 2 to 5, the $12 to $20 catchers. We're talking Real Muto, Will Smith, Wilson Contreras, Dalton Varsho. Those were huge, huge, huge wins. And then there was the ones to about $3 to $5. Kirk, Christian Vasquez, Elias Diaz, Travis d'Arnaud, even Gary Sanchez returned par value. Was not worth going to $1 catchers by and large. It's worth paying up, of course, again, if they stay healthy because of the replacement value, because of these position scarcity of catcher, especially in two catcher leagues we're talking about. It's worth it. One catcher league, and I'm not sure that I would overpay for anything because you can churn at the bottom, but in 2 catcher leagues, I do believe that might be worth paying the extra buck and getting a catch a little bit earlier than you think, not to go down to having crappy ones at the bottom. Agree or disagree, Ian?
Agreed.
Ruben?
I agree, and I think that there is now a bigger one tier. It used to be just Real Muto and Perez and Sal Perez. I think that tier includes Forts, Will Smith, and Dalton Varsho because they bring different variety to the catcher position. You get the stolen bases with Varsho. You get the outfield eligibility. You get Will Smith, who's now playing more often and not in a platoon, and you get more out of him. So I think those 4 guys. I think if you get one of those 4 guys, and then you don't have to worry about catcher because those guys will play perfectly fine, and I think that's the top tier for next year. I don't think the break next year is going to be like JT Realmuto for $25. Salvador Perez is going to be like probably next year, I'd say close to $22. And you can say Varsho will go for $18, $19, even $20 because of his stolen bases, and Will Smith will go for $18, $19. So I think that's the top tier. Once you drop beyond that, then you can get bargains. You can go later. I think that's the way it's going to fall out next year.
If you're paying over an $18 equivalent or round equivalent, then you're going to get into bad territory with return on investment. But something around 12 to 20 that seems a little bit overpriced probably isn't because of that. Next question is aces. Are you buying aces? I know so many people were, gotta get an ace, gotta get someone in the first 2 rounds, push-up pitching, and obviously there's the pocket aces strategy, which I think is a big no-no. The question is, are aces worth buying? If not, when do you think you need to buy your pitching? Start with you, Ian.
I like what we did in the main event was we waited till the 5th, 6th turn, and we got Logan Webb and Yu Darvish. And then we waited longer and got Joe Ryan and Jordan Montgomery. Got our closers, got some more guys, and then waived the wire. Waived the wire. Come on now. It's decent. We waived the wire and got our guys that we've been talking about all night. So at least this year, we picked 15. I don't think we're going to pick 15 again. Maybe 8 would be nice, or even 1 might be nice. But at 15, 16, didn't want a pitcher. If the right pitcher fell to the 3-4, we would have considered if Mullins Judge wasn't there. But at that point, 5, 6 had to grab, and was overall happy with what we got from that spot. overall. Definitely Darvish. Logan Webb was a bit of a disappointment. Bit of a disappointment. Not quite as good as we would have hoped. But,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
I think that range of pricing was really ideal. Auction equivalent, $18 to $25, I think was the spot. We're talking pitchers 11 to 20. That's really the spot where Alcantara went, Joe Musgrove went, Rodon,
Mhm.
even Verlander was in that range, and that was a huge gain. Max Fried, Julio Urias, that whole range produced a well above average of value. And I remember in GDD that we played against, and we had a good year too. We finished in second. Congrats, you finished in first. But we had Aaron Nola, who fell to us at 23. That's, again, in that range. Zach Wheeler, 21. Carlos Rodon, 17. We triple hit that range, and those were a good, successful trio. And I know sometimes pitchers are more expensive. It's whoever falls in that range, right? Don't get married to the player, I think. I would say look for the range. And obviously, if you have a player that you think is worth higher than projections, say, obviously adjust that. But, get used to playing the right space. Get used to playing the right quantity where you think the greatest return on investment is. And I think it's going to continue for next year. I think paying high for aces first, second round are not as good as investment. I think that you're going to get a higher bang for your buck by getting not risky hitters in the first couple of rounds. Get your base, and then throw those pitching guys right in those fifth, sixth, seventh rounds. And that's really the way to build up your base of pitching.
Unless it falls crazy. And
Anything
then that
can change. Anything can
Anything
change
can
the
change,
market.
and especially in an auction strategy. Like if you've got a pitcher, if you got Corbin Burns for $36 and he's showing up there for $31, you buy that.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. You have to be able to adjust on the fly for what goes on.
Because I was not looking to get Machado, Freeman bets. That's not how I play. I don't play, quote, stars and scrubs. Even though I only have one $1 player on that team, which I think is valuable. I think $1 players are dangerous to have in your team. But 33, 37, 35, spending that amount of money, all of them were $5 to $6 more in an only league. So pitching, that's the only time I'm going to grab pitching is if it's just like, wow, okay, Corbin Burns, you're at 16. I think I might have to consider that because I like Corbin Burns. And that's where the player does matter too. Like, it's not just the numbers. You got to like the player, I believe.
And of the top 20 ADP pitchers from this year, 2 of them really did not pan out. Only 2 of the top 20, Giolito and Jose Barrios. I don't know why he was going that high, but that's what he was. And 5 of the top 20 ADP had injury issues, which is why they didn't pan out. So if you think about that, 13 out of the top 20 ADP pitchers didn't hurt you. Okay, they may not have gotten you a great return on investment, but they didn't hurt you. They weren't blowing up on you. It wasn't an issue. So if you think about that, 13 out of 20 people, that's a 65% chance of hitting on a top pitcher in that range. The 11 to 20, like you said, Iro, that's the sweet spot. That's the spot where you can get a guy for a quote unquote little discount. I'm sorry.
It was this year. It was this year. This year it was. It's going to be different next year, probably.
Last year, I believe it was even later. The middle guys were worth more because a lot of the guys came out of nowhere, and that's how it turned out. So every year is going to be different, but injury wise, you didn't have as many injuries to the top pitchers. So it was, or the pitchers were injured to begin with, and they came in, whatever it may be. Like Lance Lynn was actually who was the 20th ADP last year, but he was on the injured list. DeGrom started on the injured list, and there are a couple who were injured, but and you didn't get your value because Walker Buehler got injured, so you don't get the value there. So those 3 guys right there, those 3 of the 5 guys who are the top 20 who were injured, you didn't get the value there. But otherwise, you're not killing yourself. But you shouldn't have to wait. You shouldn't have to wait past the top 20. You can get one of those top guys, get a 1A, and then you'll be perfectly fine. Bulk up on the hitting early, get the 1A pitcher in around 3 or 4 or even 5, do it that way, and you're good to go.
And the market's going to change every year. I mean, a couple of years ago, I wrote an article. It was one of my articles that helped me win Writer of the Year. I'm sorry?
Just gave you a little You won the...
Thank you for the music. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, there you go. Little trumpets.
Well, I was saying that I wrote an article called "The Case for an Ace," saying that what was the most successful pitching strategy, which this is what I did, and I won a lot of leagues this way. Get that ace. Spend $30. It was unheard of before then, but get that ace. Get when Madison Bumgarner. Get that Kershaw back then. and that was really the way to go. It's going to change every year.
But Glenn Colton and Rick Wolf have been saying get the ace for years, and I like
not this
I
year
like
though.
that.
If you did that this year, it was not the right
No,
investment.
No, I didn't. I like I said, 5-6. But going for that second, well, we've discussed it.
Yeah.
We've discussed it. We're on our last question of the night, friends.
The last general question is just anything else that you think you learned from this year, or either maybe a success or a failure that you did, or something.
I failed in TGFBI. I just couldn't get it going. And I tried. I never quit. We ended up 7th, 15. That's really remarkable. It was just like, all right, humble us. Go ahead. Just couldn't get over the top. Really happy on the Devil's Rejects League. Finally won the championship. It was my third year in that league, and it sucked because I was like, just couldn't get over the top, and then we got over the top. It was a good year. This is a good year. It was a really good, fun year. A lot of good learning. Really developed a new philosophy, which I talk about on Under the Radar. If you want to listen Under the Radar, it's me yapping and Derek, but the really smart Derek Van Riper's there too, and the awesomely funny and brilliant Nando DeFino. And we really talk about a lot of the stuff we talked about today. So we're on the Wednesday on the Athletic Fantasy Baseball feed, and you can go back and listen to shows. Ariel, you want to give the show a plug? Because you did more guest spots this year on that show than anybody did.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show there. Definitely a terrific show worth listening to. They do some strategy. They do undervalued players. That's something that we don't do as much on this show, but like the real remote players that come up, and it's called Under the Radar for a reason. Very good
Bubba
show.
Thompson.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Those guys, very entertaining show, and great information. You'll have a good time. Definitely check it out on the Athletic.
Gotta have you on, Ruvain. Gonna have to have you on one time, Ruvain.
I'm good to go. I can go through all the prospect injuries because I know you're going to look at that because I have a bunch already waiting for even this show. There are so many prospect injuries, they just keep piling up.
Ruvain, why don't you do the injury report now?
Sure. Perfect. I'll go right into it. We'll start with Robert Hassel. He actually fractured his wrist in Arizona. He's playing there. He broke his hamate bone in his right wrist. He's going to miss the remainder of the Arizona Fall League. He's a 20-year-old prospect. So the Nats, was after the big trade for Juan Soto. He's going to require surgery and be out 6 to 8 weeks. But he should still be ready for opening day. He's a guy to keep on your radar for next year, possibly because the Nationals have nothing to lose and they may bring him up mid-season.
Mid-season is right. Wait, I have a question. I'm going to interrupt your injury report because I want to ask Ariel Cohen a question. What do you think of Robert Hassel?
I think Robert Hassel is a player that can contribute immediately.
Okay. Robert Hassel is very important. Top 17 prospect. Some people have him a little lower, 20. Had a real jump. He was around 5 or 6. Great speed. Great hit tool the other way. Power the other way. I think he's really undervalued. And the reason I want to interrupt is I want to ask you, Ruvain, do you think Robert Hassel, when they say, I saw the same report that he was going to be okay. Steve Gardner, we own him in the League XFL. And Steve Gardner wrote, uh-oh, to me. And I said, yeah, but it says he's going to be back for spring training. Is he really going to be back and ready to go? Because if he is, you're right. There is a spot for him in Washington that's going to be there for him for a good long time, as long as I think he will. And I think he will. He's a beautiful athlete. Kind of like Kyle Tucker-ish, actually, if you think about it. I just made that comp. I could be dead wrong, but I watched him today. I watched Robert Hassel. I had a little break, and I was watching film on Hassel. I was very, very impressed. But I did want to ask you, as the fantasy baseball injury guru that you are, what is the prognosis to come back from this injury?
Well, I think he could be ready for spring training, but look what the Nationals did with Mackenzie Gore. They took him very slowly. They're not winning this year. They want him to be ready by the end of the year to see what they have toward the end of the year. So I think he will be ready, but they're going to take it really slow. Listen, if they had a good team and they were going to compete, they're in the National League East. They need a lot of pieces to be able to compete with the Braves and the Mets, even the Phillies who are in the playoffs, even the Marlins who have a great pitching staff. The Nationals are still a little bit away, so they're not going to rush him, which means he's not going to be up April, May. They'll keep him in the minors. I can maybe see an end of June for him coming up just because he's one of the top guys, and they want to see what they have because Why would you do that if you're trading Juan Soto? You want to see what prospects you have, and what better place to learn than on the major league level? I mean, that's my opinion on him. And because they took their time with Mackenzie Gore and they showed patience with him, they didn't let him pitch that much down the stretch because they're the prize guys that they got from the Juan Soto trade. If these guys don't pan out, they're going to look like idiots trading Juan Soto.
And speed plays often earlier in rookies' prospects than some of the power stuff. So you could see that playing into effect quicker than you think.
Yes, 100%. Another guy that I'm going to mention is Sixto Sanchez. He had surgery for his right shoulder October 5th. He underwent also shoulder surgery in July of 2021. He started going, got an injection in August. They had to shut him down. He is expected to be ready in time for spring training, but this guy already, I don't know how much we're going to put into him because he's had 2 shoulder surgeries already in 2 years. I mean, he's still a prospect. Maybe you'll get something out of him, but we'll see.
But
Another guy I
also,
want to mention,
the Marlins don't The Marlins don't like him that much. He doesn't work, from what I have gathered. Because this is a dead wrong Ian Kahn dead wrong section right here, which is that I was really big on Sixto Sanchez coming into this season. In one of our early NFBCs, that we did in November of last year, I think I took him as like the 6th starter. Rob and I took him as like a 6th starter or something. And that was on me. I was like, no, he's going to be the thing. And he was definitely not the thing. And just got the feeling that I just have this memory of the Marlins not being happy with his
work ethic. I think it was his work ethic. I saw some videos of him throwing this past year. He did not look comfortable. He did not look good. It looked like he was all out of sync. He did not look like the prospect that they traded for.
I mean, top prospect. He was the big piece in one of the big pieces, probably the big piece in the Real Muto trade. Right. And here's what I would say: if you own Sixto Sanchez in a dynasty league and you can get 50 cents on the dollar for him right now,
do it.
Like a 2nd round pick,
do it.
You might want to do that. Because
it's Farce Whitley all over.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's something.
That's the comp.
Okay, good count. I'll take it.
One more prospect that I wanted to mention about injuries. Drew Jones.
Yeah.
Drew Jones had surgery on his left shoulder earlier this year. He was the number 2 overall pick this past year. He's not going to debut. It's his non-throwing shoulder, so that's good. And he's still only 18 years old, but he should have full clearance to play starting in spring training. Another guy who had shoulder surgery, Braylon Marquez. He underwent shoulder surgery in June. It cost him all of 2021 as well, the same shoulder injury. There's no timeline for his return yet, but those are some prospects just to keep in the back of your mind. If you hear any news about them, good or bad, these are some names you should know.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the show. Wanted to thank special guest Ian Kahn for coming on to the show this year.
Guys, thank you. I really, really thank you. This is my last show this season. We're going to start back up on Under the Radar sometime in November. But go back and listen to old shows. They're pretty good. People like it. But it's a real pleasure. Thank you for having me on and talking the game with you guys. It's really fun, and I appreciate you both.
Absolutely. Cool. Ruvain, why don't you just tell us what's going on with you?
Well, my weekly Rotoballer article is done for the year. It'll start again the beginning of next year, hopefully. But you can continue to follow me on Twitter at MLB Injury Guru, where we'll continue to send out updates on injured players, surgeries for injuries that players didn't tell us about this last season. You'll hear all about them and more.
Well, I'm Ariel Cohen, write for Fangraphs, write for Rotoballer, and you can follow me on Twitter at ATCNY, and of course, you can listen to me right here on the Beat the Shift podcast.
Can I add one thing? Ariel, I'm sorry to interrupt your flow, but I wanted to say, if you want to follow me on Twitter, don't follow me at Ian Kahn. That's without the 4 at the end of it, because that's not my fantasy baseball account. Ian Kahn 4 is my fantasy baseball account. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, cool.
Definitely follow Ian Kahn. Good follow. The baseball one, not the actor one, as Ian just told you. Although you do great acting, so maybe follow that one also.
Nah, just do the Ian Kahn 4. That's what you're looking for.
All right, just do what he says. Our next show will be live at First Pitch Arizona
Hey.
I'll be there live. We're going to do a show. Going to have a nice audience. If you have never been to First Pitch Arizona, it's a really great baseball conference, fantasy baseball conference. We see games at the AFL. There's going to be the Home Run Derby. There's going to be the All-Star game, the Fall Stars game there. Amazing conference panels by everyone. I'm also doing a panel, at least another panel, on doing Excel tips and tricks on how to do some mathematics of fantasy baseball with Excel. So going to show you how to do some of the valuations and stuff. Definitely worthwhile.
Wait. And also, you may very well, as of now, I have tickets to fly to Arizona. And I'm trying to go. I'm just trying to figure out a way to make it work with work. But if I don't go, Ariel Cohen will be sitting in for Steve Gardner and Ian Kahn, the Steve Gardner Ian Kahn team in the XFL, and doing the auction. And I'm very grateful to him for that, and couldn't be in better hands as far as I'm concerned. And Ariel and I are going to be doing lots of prep between now and November 1st, right? Yeah.
Well, I'm honored that you asked me. I do hope that you get the opportunity to go and draft yourself, but I'll be there either way, ready to be in action if needed. And yeah, come check us out. Come check the pod out. Come check the sessions out. Come check out everything. And just hanging out with people from the industry, fans all over, people who play the game, NFBC people, home league people. Just a great experience. So come on in there. Check that out. Presented by Baseball HQ. Sign up there for more information.
Brent Hershey. Ray
Murphy, Brent Hershey, bunch of good guys. I spoke to them today, so really good guys.
Look at you.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, that's the end of the show. Again, thank you to Ian Kahn for joining us. And we'll be back with the live episode. Hey, the season may be over, but as you know, we do a lot of prep in the offseason. So stay tuned right here on the Beat the Shift podcast. Check us out for more episodes. We'll be doing sporadic throughout the offseason following the live one at the end of this month. All right, once again, for Ruvain and I and the rest of the Beat the Shift podcast, we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. Follow us on Twitter at beat_shift_pod.